I think I have a really good idea for a movie, but it's 1:30 in the morning. So enamored with everything that he thinks she's written because they both love the same person. The worst day of your life actually can end up becoming the path that you were meant to be on. Something happens in Act One that very, very rarely happens in a Hallmark movie. I will just say that.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so excited to welcome Julie Sherman Wolfe to the podcast today. Hi, Julie. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm so great. How are you doing? Thanks for
Really
having
good.
me.
You bet. I'm so excited today to talk about the grand history that you have as a Hallmark writer, and also the fact that you have contributed quite a bit to this month's Passport to Love series. So I'm excited to talk about both of those movies. So thank you for being
Okay,
here.
my pleasure.
Let's start by the fact that anybody that has watched a Hallmark movie at some point or another has likely watched one of Julie's Hallmark movies. How crazy is that to think that you have now written 28
Is it 28?
Hallmark
I was actually
movies?
going to count because yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
It's
It's crazy because when I first started there, uh, it's probably 12 years ago or so when I really started. They aired later, but I think I really got in maybe 2013-ish. And I saw a career of another writer, Nancy Silver, and I thought, wow, she's got like 20 of these movies. Wouldn't that be amazing if I could just find a home here and
yeah,
just do that? Like
yeah.
it would make me so happy to just do that forever. And it just worked out, and it's been fantastic. I could not be happier. And I did all the usual ups and downs of a writing career before I landed at Hallmark for 15 other years. So this has been really fantastic.
So yeah, true. You wrote before you
Yes.
did Hallmark, but I'm really curious how you landed here, knowing a little bit of history that you were at one time even a stand-up comedian. So how did you get from?
Barely.
But we see
Um,
glimpses of your humor in your movies.
It
So
was so I was in San Diego, and this is I don't want to age myself, but there was no website telling you how to become a screenwriter and what to do or anything remotely like that. So I was never thinking about it because I'm from San Francisco. I went to school in San Diego. I was not exposed to the entertainment industry at all. I had my favorite shows. I just never considered that could be a career path for me. But I was a copywriter in San Diego after college, and it was sort of a last hired, first fired thing where I got laid off during the downsizing time. And same day, I got dumped by my longtime college boyfriend. Same day. Uh, and I was supposed to do and I'm doing lightly doing stand-up comedy. Like I would open for some comics that would come to UC San Diego where I went to college, and I would do a 11:30 p.m. 5-minute set at the Comedy Store. And I was supposed to do exactly that night. And I was thinking, gosh, do I really even have it in me to go down there and be funny? Because I don't feel like things are very funny right now. But I did. And the headliner was a current writer on Roseanne, and he was saying, and this is it's a little bit sexist. He's like, well, you're a chick and you're funny. Why aren't you would get lots of work up there if you wrote sitcoms. And it was just that epiphany moment that people get. And I started waiting tables again for a while and saved up and moved to LA. And that was it was a long time ago. And I lived in an apartment where there were, hookers and drug dealers right outside my window. And it was a sketchy part of Hollywood. And and now many years later, I'm in Connecticut, and just suburban Connecticut, living sort of the Hallmark dream.
it's crazy how you do we all do these things and we like, why are we here for this reason? And then all of a sudden there's just that one meeting or something that actually will just shift the trajectory and then
Yes.
look what
And I
happens.
tell I do not I won't say it's a TED talk, but it has the same vibe. And one of them is about how what seems like the worst day of your life actually can end up becoming the path that you were meant to be on. And that's a very Hallmark way of thinking, which is
Yeah.
probably why I like writing these so much,
Yeah.
because I do kind of have that view of life that,
Yeah.
even everything can be fate if you are willing to sort of open yourself up to it.
So you have got, like, when I look at the list, and I'm going to take the time because I've got it to share some of my favorites. When I was
Mhm.
scrolling IMDb, I was like, she wrote that one, and she wrote that one, and she wrote that one. Some of my favorites: Fourth Down and Love, Holiday Spectacular, Always Amore. A Dickens of a Holiday, a Glenbrook Christmas, Christmas in Montana, Summer in the Vineyard. Vastly different movies, which is crazy to think
Yes.
because everybody thinks there's this Hallmark formula. But when I look at those movies,
Yeah.
so different.
I don't
Some of
subscribe
my
to that.
favorites.
I don't subscribe to that trope
Yeah.
of Hallmark movies because I think that's an easy way of describing them. Like, oh, they only kiss at this one part in the movie, ha ha ha. But if you look at them long enough, like you do,
Yeah.
the whole point is to sort of how it's going to end. It's just kind of how does it get there, and is it going to get there in a way maybe we haven't seen yet? So that's the challenge actually after this many of them is sort of getting to that point in a different way.
Yeah.
And we've really kind of tried to not be held down by those rules that people like to say we have because it's really just not. Obviously there's rules for every screenplay. That's just how movies work. There have to be certain things that happen at certain times for this, just because that's the story. But these rules, the Hallmark format, I think has really it's not such an important part of what we're doing anymore. We're really kind of opening it up to. I think it's been more fun. There's some more comedy. It's more creative. It's real fun to do it now.
I
It always has
agree.
been, but it's been more open lately.
I agree. Like on this side of it, watching them, you can see where, if you want to call them moments of risk or whatever, where things like there's just these new things that have been inserted, the vibe of it in certain ways. But it's
Right.
still that core why we show up to watch a Hallmark movie.
Right. You don't want to, we're not going to try and become Lifetime or some other, we're not a different network, but, but yeah, we all want to do something original and that hasn't been done yet. Nobody wants to write the same movie 30 times. Um, so yeah, so it's always fun.
That's awesome. So, one that I didn't mention is Holiday Touchdown, a Chiefs love story, which I love the fact that you're wearing your 49ers hat right now.
I have the Chief swag over here. I don't know if you can see it. Well, wait. Yeah. See next to the blue typewriter, there's a
Yes,
helmet. That's
yes.
a replica of the helmet that's in the Chiefs Hall of Fame at the stadium.
That's great.
That movie.
As a Missouri fan, from Missouri, I've got my Chief shirt in my bedroom right now. It's there. So I was excited to see that that's another opportunity where Hallmark has kind of branched out. I mean, we
Mhm.
know that Hallmark, the flagship, all of that is Kansas City. So to
Right.
see that they were open to making a movie involving the Chiefs, and then that is something that you wrote about. Did you ever have any idea that this movie would, I mean, I'm still hearing about it after it came out several months ago.
I think I mean, obviously we knew it was going to be a big deal because of the sort of the sideshow of the of Taylor Swift and Travis
Yeah,
Kelce.
yeah.
So it got a lot more press initially because of that. And then sort of the challenge was to show the world that it's literally not the Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift love story. It's a totally different story, which was a little bit hard at the beginning, sort of separate the two. But then once we got rolling and we had stuff to show and previews, people started to realize that it was its own
Yeah.
movie. And um, it doesn't, in my mind, it didn't matter that the Chiefs had beat the 49ers a week before I started writing this because I have a love for football that I could translate to the Chiefs. And actually they're very nice people. And then when we went to the game, I've never been in a nicer stadium of people. Like people were just so kind. It was great. And I said if I had to root for an AFC team, if they aren't playing the Niners, I would root for the Chiefs. But uh but now
If I have to.
I mean, if I have to. I just try not to look.
Yeah.
But it was fantastic and just I was happy that people that weren't Chiefs fans were open to watching it and realizing that it's not about it's about the Chiefs, but it's about so much more than that. And I'm hoping that my love for football and kind of what football brought to me in my family as a child and now and with my son, that's all stuff that translates, doesn't matter what team you're really rooting for. Um, so that's what we tried to do with that. And I just love this group. We got to see each other last week in LA for a party, for an event, which I love that we
Yeah,
still
can you
get to do
talk a little
events.
bit about that? Because, as fans, we saw it all over social media and we were trying to like figure out what it was. We knew that there was a big celebration for it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
They were just trying to sort of remind people about the movie before the Emmy, before the TV Academy, people start voting for nominations. Really.
Got it. Got it. That's
That's what it
awesome.
is. It's sort of like, hey, remember us? We're here. And remember how awesome, how much fun we
How
had.
well
And
it went.
it
Yeah.
was so nice just to see everybody. And it felt like a family reunion. It was wonderful. I loved
And
it.
it looked a lot of fun. We were living vicariously through you. And also there was a Gracie Award that we recently.
Yes, that isn't that lovely. They won that. I wasn't able to go for that, but that was great that they. I mean, I that's what I love about it. I guess I've never really been part of a Hallmark movie that really transcended the bubble.
Hmm.
And this seemed like it really went outside that kind of Hallmark fandom to
Yeah.
other people. And it was nice to hear from people in my life that don't usually watch them
Yeah.
that really enjoyed it, or
Yeah.
people that don't watch football that really enjoyed
Oh,
it, or
yeah.
people that love football and think, oh, they thought a lot of people thought we were going to get football wrong. And I was like, there's
They're
no
gonna
way we're
watch it
getting
just to
football wrong.
see if you got it right,
Yeah,
right?
no, there was zero chance of that getting it wrong. So, and then ultimately, the best one of the best things is that a connection I made because of this movie had a connection at the 49ers, and I ended up getting to go on the sideline before the game, um, before a Niners home game in December. So I did kind of get my
Nice.
Niner reward.
Yeah, you gave and it came back to
That's
you,
right. That's
right?
right.
It's
Exactly.
a whole nother Hallmark moment right there.
Exactly. Exactly. Now I just have to convince them to do a 49er movie, but I think that's going to be harder. So,
We'll keep
okay.
wishing.
Yeah.
So this month is Passport to Love on Hallmark in June. And the first two movies you actually wrote. So 50% of this month was written by Julie Sherman Wolfe. And so we get to
Crazy.
watch this Saturday To Barcelona with Love. And then Hallmark has been marketing it as part two next
Hmm.
weekend, which is To Barcelona Forever.
Right.
So, can you talk about how this idea came about? And I hear that an airport conversation might have been involved.
Close. It was a
Okay.
bar at
Okay.
Radio City after, okay, so it was after the premiere of Holiday Spectacular.
Yep. Yep.
Um, it was after the Rockettes movie premiere, and that was their big launch for all of Christmas. So all the Hallmark people were there,
I
not just the
remember that.
people in the
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
So it was getting late, shoes were off, we were just hanging out. And I was talking to Ashley, and she said, just casually, like, I think I have a really good idea for a movie, but it's 1:30 in the morning. Maybe tomorrow we'll think it's stupid, but I'm going to tell it to you anyway. And she told me this idea that ended up becoming the impetus for part one. I'm like, I think this is a really good idea, but what kind, like, what foreign country, what language should it be, and like, who do we know that speaks a foreign language? And then she looked over at Alison Sweeney, who's just walking by, has no idea what's happening, and
Another one of those moments, right?
she's like, well, I've always wanted to work. They're friends. They always wanted to work together. She goes, Allie, would you speak a foreign language? And she goes, yes, Spanish. And we're like, great, Barcelona. So that was it. And then we just kind of, a tiny germ of an idea, but it was a really, really good idea. And I loved it. And so we turned it into a full pitch, and we all, got on our Zoom call and pitched to Hallmark. And we thought, okay, great. So they bought that, and we were excited to make it. And then they told us, oh, we actually also want a part two. Like, we want to do two movies. And so then we had to think of a completely different story I had to think of, just totally different vibes. And this one's in the country. It's a completely different story. Um, Taking the journey that these two ladies went on, and continuing their story, which that was a really big challenge too, because when you write a script, sometimes it goes in different direction than you think, just while you're writing. And so I was like, I really hope this ends the way I want it to, so that this part two makes sense. Because
Got
I had to
it.
write them pretty much together.
Got it.
So it's
Okay.
like writing one long giant thing.
So we're talking about Allison Sweeney
Hmm.
and Ashley Williams, and
Yeah.
each of one of them have their own little love story, one in part one in part two. Can you talk us through, what can you tell us about these two movies and how they interconnect?
So when we meet Allie's character, she is already in Spain and has a close friendship with a bookstore owner who has a literary crush on the author of this one
Mm,
novel that's just flying off the shelves in Barcelona. Um, and only in Barcelona. This book is not doing well anywhere else except in the Spanish language market. Um, and we come to find out that Allie's character is who is a book translator, but she can't talk about. She's supposed to be anonymous, which is how it kind of works when you're doing that in the publishing. She did the translation, so everything that he's falling in love with, all these words are hers, and she
Mm.
can't really admit that. And but the problem is they now invited Ashley's character to do a reading at Sant Jordi, which is this huge book festival. It's like Valentine's Day in Barcelona,
Okay.
where people give each other roses and books.
Okay.
And he's invited her to come speak because he's just so enamored with everything that he thinks she's written. And she gets there and she doesn't know why all of a sudden her book is so popular in Spain, but it is.
Mm.
She can't
Hmm.
figure it out. And then we kind of start to figure it out. They start to figure it out. We get that out of the way a little bit early, and then Ashley's character falls in love with Nico because why
Okay.
wouldn't you? He's a gorgeous Spaniard who is loves books and loves literature.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a Cyrano kind of love triangle situation, and those two girls play off each other so brilliantly.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really neither of them are bad people. Neither of them are lying to each other. It's just misunderstandings, and they're trying to ultimately just trying to help each other at the end.
Hmm.
Um, I don't want to give away too much.
Yeah. I get
It's
it
it's
though.
it's, it's hard because you don't want to not like either of them. Then and really, um, Allie's character doing a translation was just sort of her job, and maybe she took some liberties that she
Hmm.
might not have normally taken, but this was about Barcelona and this is about a place that she's fallen in love with personally. So
Yeah.
she wanted to get it right because she fell in love with the city when she moved there a
Got
few
it.
years earlier. So it's just a really sweet little story between them. And then I don't really want to give away too much on the part two because it sort of
Yeah.
gives away the ending.
Yeah.
But
It's
they end
okay.
up in a
We didn't know.
country and
New setting, new vibe.
new setting. There is a love interest for Ashley's character in the country, and we have a really really fun time with that. Sort of those giant farming families that are out in the countryside in Spain.
Yeah.
Um, it involves saffron, which is
Uh-huh.
very very Spanish, very local, and I learned a lot about that.
Yeah.
I had to learn. So this is kind of it's kind of interesting. Like, so Ashley's character never went to Barcelona and tried to write about it. And that's why the book didn't do as well. That's why Allie's character didn't love it because it's clear she had never been there.
Got
Right.
it.
But neither had I when
Yeah.
I wrote about a script about a girl writing a book about Barcelona. I had never been
Yeah.
to Barcelona either. So I did a ton of research on it before I started writing to make sure I wasn't getting it wrong.
Yeah.
I was just watching TikToks and vloggers, and I was watching everything I could just to get a sense of the vibes of the city. But then I did get to go
Yeah.
first week of shooting. I finally went, and that was fantastic to see all the places that I had written about in real life, and
Yeah.
really, oh yeah, okay, well I got that right. Okay, good.
So was there anything, that as it translated from your research, over then to now we're going to film that it was like, ooh, that's a little bit off. Like we've got to make some of those adjustments.
Um, I can't remember. I think if they were, we would have been we would have. I think we were already made aware of it before they
Yeah.
even started shooting. Where in production, and I don't remember what I had to change. I know I had to do some changes.
Yeah.
But there's one I couldn't believe it was real because I thought I kind of made it up, but it was real. There was a speakeasy through like a hidden speakeasy where it looked like a laundromat or a drugstore, and then through a back door with a secret word is a bar, is a speakeasy. And I thought I made this up, and it actually existed in Barcelona. So that was pretty awesome. Because Ashley's character is get kind of one of those people that people talk to and tell things to and tell their secrets to. And she kept finding out about all these secret spots that even people who've lived there for 10 years weren't being told about. So that was kind of her fun thing that she was bringing
Yeah.
to the table, is
Yeah.
that she has this gift of people opening up and telling her things. And that does lead to her in part of her journey of what
Mm,
she ends up finding in
yeah.
herself, and maybe what she's better at
Got it.
than what she came there to do.
Okay.
I know I'm being really vague, but I just don't want
No, no, no. It's good.
to.
It's good. So, having written 28 movies, I imagine often you don't really know who you're writing for or who will land that part. In
No, not
this
usually.
case, you knew that Allie and Ashley were both going to be playing these leads. So, do you
Yeah,
write differently when you know them or when you know who's going to be playing those parts?
definitely. Yeah. I very rarely get to know who's in it. I mean, I knew it for I also got to know that really for Holiday Touchdown. Early on, I didn't know it was going to be Hunter until a little bit later, but I knew it would be Tyler from the beginning.
Yeah.
I've done one other movie with him, so I kind of knew what I wanted to do for him. And then for these ladies, I've talked to them. I obviously I've seen enough of their work and I've talked to them enough that I could definitely tailor it to them. Ashley's just this just always smiling, kind of hyper, joyful, funny, and Allie's got this depth of soul, and she's also really, really funny.
Yeah.
But just there's just that difference in the two of them, and it really works well together. They balance each other really well.
Good balance.
You can't have two of the same, and
Hmm.
they're perfectly balanced. I love watching what I've seen so far between the two of them.
So you've written it and then did you bounce back ideas back and forth like in developing their characters? Or was it, I know them, I know what we're going to write here. How did that collaboration happen?
It's more like we kind of talked it all out at the beginning when it was just an outline and like just expanding from the pitch. And they were involved the entire time, which is because they're producing as well.
Okay.
So that's not always had the case. You don't usually have the actors involved in that part of the process, but since they are producing as well, that's what we did. And it actually, I think, um, really took it to a new level because they were involved in these characters and really knowing who they were. And
Mhm.
if they ever made a suggestion, it was always to the benefit of the character
Yeah.
and it always improved that. And it's nice to have it coming from an actor's mind because they see things differently than a writer does.
Mhm.
I'm a terrible actor. I don't think I can't do that. So they can
We've
bring
seen your ESPN reel. It was pretty
that was
good.
not, yeah, oh my God. So many takes. So many takes. Yeah, in this very chair. So they bring sort of that knowledge that you can't really I don't have that. I can't think that way, but they can. So it
Mhm.
really brought a nice depth of character to both of their characters and a lot of their journey because the actors do a lot of work on these scripts after they get the script, but before they shoot, they do a lot of kind of a deep dive into the characters and they
Mm.
do a lot of their own backstory and um they really become that character. And I'm never usually privy to that part of it, and that's been pretty fun to see.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was great. I was only there for a few days to watch, but it was just a great time.
So let's talk about that a little bit. It's not normal for then the writer to actually be there for any part of that filming.
No, we basically just decide we want if we're okay if everyone's okay that we go, we pay our own way pretty
Hmm.
much and just visit the set and sort of stay out of the way, honestly, unless there's and I always say if you need anything, if there's anything I
Yeah.
can do, if there's a line change, I'm happy to do that. But my job is to really not it's time for all the other people to do their jobs and they
Yeah.
all do them very well. So I just sit there. I don't really offer suggestions. Eventually someday I'll produce and then I'll have lots of opinions and suggestions, but for right now
Stay in your lane, right?
I'm enjoying Barcelona and then I can just duck out and go, yeah, I'm going to go see a really old church now. Bye. And then do
So
some tourism.
they filmed in February and March.
Yeah.
So what was that? Had you been on a destination type of a set before?
No. I guess not. No, I haven't. It's it, it's
Are you?
crazy. Because people, you're in the middle of the most tourist heavy places
Oh
in
yeah.
Barcelona,
Yeah.
and they may not necessarily know who it is, but they definitely want to stand around and watch.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. Um, they always want to, everyone gets looked at like, are you somebody?
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
always sort of just go, nope.
Just
I'm gonna go hide. I'm
look
gonna go hide in the tent.
look at them.
Yeah.
So a lot of, while they're filming then and you when you were there, I imagine in places like Barcelona, you are going to have those people that aren't hired to be in the movie. And so there's a lot of that navigating. Can you kind of talk about the vibe when that filming was going on that you were there?
They keep it. I don't think it was chaotic or anything. I think it was fine.
Hmm.
Um, they have enough. They'll block off what they have to block off so they can get the scene done.
Yeah.
But if I and any of these movies, if you're in a major tourist area, if you look way in the background of a scene, you can probably see people just watching, or not even wait, but you can just see people watching because you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
block off the main thoroughfare of Barcelona for an entire day to
Yeah.
shoot something. But the fact that they got the shots that they got and it looks pretty natural is pretty
Yeah.
incredible.
That's pretty awesome. That's pretty awesome. So, can you share anything then about that? Were you involved in any of like the casting process or know anything about that? I mean, we've talked about Ashley and we've talked about Allie, but anything beyond that?
No, we really have our thing that we do, and we
Yeah.
leave it to the professionals to do the rest of it.
I imagine
Yeah.
that there's quite a few maybe that were hired or involved in Spain.
Yeah, that's for the movies that are like that. I wouldn't even in Canada too. I don't always know all the supporting actors. Now I kind of do because I've done so many of them, but
Mhm.
um I'm always delighted by some of the supporting actors that I don't know of, but but then they show up and they're fabulous. And
Mhm.
I really love the cast that they got in Spain. I mean, this
Uh-huh.
is, this it's Spain. There are real people that are
Oh
real
yeah.
actors there. So I think they had a pretty good talent pool. Um, of course the lead guys are very, swoon,
Mhm.
what is the word? Not swoon
In
worthy.
Spanish, it's swoon also. No.
Is it?
I don't know.
And that was actually the hardest part for me was just deciding what to do in Spanish
Mm,
and have a translation and have a subtitle, and how much could I get away with
yeah.
in Spanish to make it feel like these people actually are Spanish, but
Okay.
not making it like you're watching a foreign film.
So you're
Uh,
writing it in English, you're going, "This would be a moment that this person should say it in Spanish. I'm gonna
I
hit
would
the
actually write
translate."
I would go get on Google Translate and put it in Spanish, and then they had somebody making sure sort of colloquially that it made
Yeah,
sense because
yeah,
like formal Spanish isn't the same as conversational Spanish, and even the
yeah,
people on the set were like, "No, that's not how we would say this," and everyone they just say it however you would really say it.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 Okay, so you've shared that in writing this and knowing that Ali and Ashley were in the movie, that you could kind of tailor it to their strengths. And so we know that when we're watching Hallmark, it's going to be a good romance. But how would you say, as far as the story goes, that you have woven in some of that humor also and maybe some of that heart?
So for me, this movie, I almost call it a friendship movie that has romance in it.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw Field Day, but that had the same feeling to me, where this is really about two women becoming friends. And honestly, it's hard to make friends after a certain age and when you're in a certain place in your life. And it's much harder for
Yeah.
people. And
Yeah.
also for romance, it's not like these are 25-year-old who's never been in love. Like these people have been through things.
Hmm.
We're not going to assume that Allie and Ashley's characters have never been in love and have never been in relationships. It's just nothing's just been the right one. So
Yeah.
just a different place to start.
Yeah.
Um,
Which
and
has been very successful for Hallmark. I mean,
yeah,
we've seen that play out with the Wedding Veil series.
mhm,
We've seen that play out with the Groomsmen, where the focus of the stories in that series is on the friendships and
right,
then how they navigate through and help each other out along the way.
right. And on this one, I really love it because you really, at the beginning, you think, oh, here they're going to be, there's going to be an animosity, but it's just
Mhm.
really, we can still have conflict without animosity, and
Yeah,
we can still have conflict without
yeah,
one of them being a bad person, and they're neither of them are. They literally are all coming from a good place, and that's what you want to do. And that's the hallmark
yeah,
part of it, right?
yeah.
Everyone, we don't like our antagonists to actually be evil.
Right,
We
right.
just don't do that.
No,
Everyone's coming from a good place, and sometimes that makes things that gives us the conflict and gives us the story. But we're gonna root for both of them.
yeah.
And we need to figure out, and that's what I like about this movie is like how are they both going to be happy at the end of this? Because they both love the same person.
Mm,
So how are we going to make them both happy by the end of
yeah.
the movie? That's going to
That's
be
good.
that'll
That's
be the
good.
journey that you
There
guys
we
have
go.
put. Yeah.
So I know you can't give anything away, but is there anything knowing this story that you can hint that you're excited for fans to see?
Um, the scene that we sort of improved at the bar at 1:30 in the morning is still basically the scene that's in there now at the beginning when they're at a cafe and it's the moment where Ashley's character realizes that all the stuff that Nico is quoting isn't anything that she wrote and doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. And it's this three-person quick banter, and we were laughing so hard in the bar, just improving a version of that scene. And I still think we talked about dolphins and volcanoes, and I think that's still in there. Like we were just messing around. Like, well, like my favorite scene was the volcano. Like, what volcano? I never read about a volcano, like that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's almost that. I can't wait to see the whole. I actually haven't seen the entire scene yet of that myself, so
Okay.
I'm excited to see how. I've seen enough of it to know that it's going to be cute. But
Yeah.
that was sort of the scene that made us laugh really hard when we were there.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about that. And then I have a scene. It's something I have very rarely done in the. Oh, I'm shaking. Sorry. I've very rarely done is that I have. I don't know if I should tell you. Something happens in Act One of the second movie that very, very rarely happens in a Hallmark movie. I will just say that. Very,
Interesting.
very, very rarely. It
Okay.
happens in Act One. So
Love it.
that'll be that's what I'm excited to see how
Maybe we could guess what that is.
you can guess and then come back and go like, and I'll just twitch. I think you can probably guess, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say. I don't want to get because that gives away too much stuff. So I'm not gonna tell you. But I'll come back. I'll comment on if you post something. I'll comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Figure out what it is,
So
right?
yeah.
Okay, so having done 28, this is 27 and 28.
I'm glad you counted for me. This is good. Now I know. This is
Well,
awesome.
and it was a little bit tricky, but I'm like, I'm pretty sure this is 27 and
I
28.
I, I trust you.
What sets these two movies apart from the others that you've done?
For me, this is the scale and the location. I've never gotten to do sort of the real huge location movie like this, which has been I can't believe we I just wanted to go to Barcelona, so we picked Barcelona, and that was sort of
And it worked.
I can't believe it worked. I just still can't believe it. Like they fell for it. Haha.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got to this. And so
We
that
fooled them.
that's it. And then just to get like two of the bigger, the biggest
Yeah.
faces on the network together
Yeah.
is fantastic. We don't always, we can't always get such a, you just get one, right? One or two. It's lovely to have them together. So I think
Mm,
that's it. And I've never had a two-parter, actually. This is my first two-parter. Even though I've had a few movies where people have talked about they wish they had a sequel, and I've pitched sequels for so many of my movies and they
mm.
just don't work out for whatever reason. This was a sequel before I even wrote the first one, so it worked out.
That was awesome. And it wasn't even anything that you dreamed up. They pitched that to you, right?
Yeah, they just said, "Yeah, let's do what happens next." I'm like, "I don't know." I
Okay.
figured it out.
So did you keep tabs on as they were filming? Did you ever get any like funny stories from the filming, any behind the scenes or anything? Did they keep you in?
Well, I was there for one of them, and I don't think it's not a secret because they just did a podcast about it. But
Yeah.
Ashley and Allie and I went to dinner at a very, very fancy restaurant with the producer and
Okay.
had the best seafood I've ever had in my entire life. And then the next morning, we were just on set and Ashley was very quiet. And I'm thinking, gosh, is she okay? Like something's off, something's weird. And she's very quiet and then just focusing. And I was sort of just not feeling great. I was just sort of just tired. And
Yeah.
then an hour later, she's just they're trying to shoot this scene on Las Ramblas, which is the main tourist street that everyone walks up and down. And there they were, and she just had a moment and,
Oh gosh.
she left it all on the
You laid it all out there.
left it all out there. And that happened, and she felt better, but
Mm,
had to get through the rest of the shooting. And that was sort of mid-morning. So
mhm.
she's a trooper. She had to get through the rest of the day. But when that happened, and she was sick, so I think we understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah.
Um, I I had been looking for kind of a Pepto for her. I was like running around to drugstores just trying to help in some way. While I was doing that, I started feeling nauseous.
Oh
And
no.
then I got back with my little package of Spanish Pepto, and that's when I saw her throw up. And then I said, "Oh no, I have to go back to my hotel," because I could feel it. Like I just started feeling like it was going downhill. And I barely made it back to my hotel, and I got sick too. And we figured out it was probably norovirus. So we were
Oh,
just sick as dogs for
oh my
24 hours. Luckily, that was a Friday. So she got to have the weekend. I had to basically just rally. I had about 18 hours where I had to get myself in some kind of shape because I had to get on a plane because I had planned a second part of my trip to Florence because I'd never been to Florence. I'm like, well, I'm right there. I have to go.
yeah,
So I literally just got myself to the point where I could get out of bed and drag myself on the plane. I had 3 masks on, so just in case I didn't want to get anyone sick.
yeah.
And I got myself to Florence, and then another 12 hours went by, and I went on a food and wine tour. And I'm like, you know what? I feel better. I'm just gonna go for it. What's the worst
Yeah,
that
do
can
it.
happen?
When in
I did it.
Rome,
Yeah,
Florence.
it was fine, but I was a little nervous after that first the first stop. I actually told the tour guide, uh, this might be my one and only stop, and I might be if I run away, this is why.
Yeah.
So that was the so the scene is, I'll tell you, people are watching, it's when they're at this big tall monument at the foot of Las Ramblas, and they're carrying juice cups with straws and talking. They're kind of bonding over their pasts and how they got to this place, and that's the scene where all that went down.
Okay.
But oh my God, I mean, but if you watch the scene, you would never know it. She is such a pro. That's to me like the story
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
she is such a pro. You would never know she wasn't feeling well or that anything bad had happened,
Hmm.
and just kept going and then did the rest of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
I
Like
think I
that's
remember like even Tyler Hines saying that once that he was doing just a recent movie and it was literally like that same similar thing had happened and he was you just go, you just do it. You just
I think
psych
he said
yourself
he had
out
a
and go.
concussion during Always Amore.
That was it.
That's my
That
movie
was it.
too. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I'm like, now I watch that movie, I'm like, huh, is that
that was it.
maybe that's why he wasn't emoting so well on that one scene. No, I'm kidding. Like I didn't even know about it. So but that's what to me is so impressive is that everything they shot that day looks fantastic, and like you would never know it. You would never, I mean, that's amazing to me. Because
Yeah.
I would be like, cancel everything. It's over.
Yeah.
I'm going to bed. But the show must go on, right?
Yeah.
Or
Okay,
whatever that
so
is.
thinking about these two movies, what is that theme or that hope that you have as the writer that we as fans get out of watching these two movies?
Um, I just like it when people let me know that it took them on a fun journey that they didn't see coming, that maybe I don't like it when people can fill out a bingo card
Yeah.
of tropes with
Yeah.
my movies. I
Yeah.
don't, there's always going to be something, right? But I don't like it where it's too predictable. So I'm hoping that people will find it a fun adventure that they aren't going to really know how it's going to turn out.
Okay.
Yep.
We're excited. Okay, you got a few minutes to do just a few
Yeah.
fun getting
Yep.
to know you.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So I'm curious to know, how do you come up with character names? We've always wondered how these character names come to be.
Oh,
Got any funny
well,
stories about that?
I'll use Holiday Touchdown as an example. I used everybody I knew that was a huge Chiefs fan.
Okay.
And apparently their families had entire parties just to because of it.
Yeah.
So like the last names, the first names, everyone I could think of was Chiefs fans for that movie. I've used pretty much everyone I've ever met at this point that I like, all my closest friends, their
Yeah.
kids, you know, a lot of last names. A lot of people love it just because it's so random. Like they won't tell
Yeah.
their families and then their name will pop up. My
Yeah.
sister's husband, my brother-in-law, started a new job, and he was there for maybe a week, and his boss comes in and he's like, "Did I did I hear your name on a Hallmark movie last night?" Just random, just like, and then it's fun. It's fun because he absolutely did. I used his name as it's a very unusual name, and there it was.
There it
So
was.
I try and use people. And then when I meet people, if I meet someone like on an airplane or something like that, and they're huge Hallmark fans, I have a list where I just kind of keep people's names. And then if
Mhm.
I need to plug something in, I'll put their name then.
That's great. Any Hallmark town that you have written about that you would love to actually go to?
So I moved to I moved to the town that I always considered a Hallmark town. I did that on purpose. So I moved to New England and basically found my little Hallmark town and that's where we bought our house. So we did that. That's Avon. Um, I so I haven't written it, but the town that I think is always so quintessentially Hallmarkers are kind of all the Connecticut towns. There's a
Oh,
town
yeah.
called
Yeah.
Essex, Connecticut, that's very much, and Mystic is very much a
Mhm.
Hallmark town. Um, all of New England. That's why
Yeah.
I don't know. I manifested just my own personal Hallmark movie life. So the One Royal Holiday, which is my probably one of my favorite movies that I've written, was shot here in Connecticut, and I made up a hybrid town name of Kentsbury, which is just
Nice.
different. It's just it's like three different towns that I love all together, like
Totally
Litchfield,
fits.
Kent, Simsbury, whatever. And so, yeah, I mean, so you know what a Hallmark town looks like. Everyone
Yeah.
knows what a Hallmark. Now, Stockbridge, Massachusetts, that Norman, there's like this street that's a Norman Rockwell
Been there.
painting.
Yeah.
That's one. That's very Hallmarky, obviously. So yeah.
Okay. All right. How about this one? And this may not even be true. Is there a holiday or a season that you haven't tackled yet in any of your Hallmark movies?
Um, I would say, see, I would say Thanksgiving, but that's not true now because Holiday Hotline had Thanksgiving in it.
Oh, that's true.
Not
Yeah.
true anymore. I would love to do Halloween. I haven't done that.
Which
Uh,
we've seen. We've seen last season we had a Hallmark
yeah, I haven't done
Halloween.
that. No, I feel like yeah, that's
You've
a good question.
you've
I don't
covered a
really
lot of them.
I've covered a lot. I'm not gonna, yeah, I wish I could tell. There is one that I wish I could do, but it's like I already pitched it and we're
Okay.
waiting to hear about it. And that's
Okay.
another one that if it works out, I'll tell you.
You'll be like, here it
I was
is.
then I'll tell you, yes, this was the one that
Okay.
this is what I was talking about. Yeah.
Okay. I'm sure there's 50 of these, but just is there anybody that comes to mind that you're like, I want this person in one of my Hallmark movies?
BJ Britt.
Mm.
He was in The Groomsmen, and
Yes.
actually I'm
Yes.
talking to him tomorrow because I just love him to death, and we met
Yeah.
on the cruise, and we just hit it off. So I'm gonna write something for him, and then I'm trying to do something with like a little group of the top actresses that were at this party last week, and we
Yeah.
came up with sort of a fun same thing as like the Rockettes. Like we just
Yeah.
like, wouldn't this be a fun idea? So we're at that very beginning where I'm like, okay, let me think if I can figure out a way to put all three of these gals in one movie together. But for right now, I want to write a movie for BJ Britt. I don't know what it's going to be. We're going to talk tomorrow. I'm curious if there's something he ever this is the kind of fun process because there's no pressure.
Yeah.
We just really like each other and we're like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out
Let's
something.
collaborate.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Okay. So speaking of collaboration, if you could co-screenwrite with
Oh,
somebody,
Nina and Tracy. Well, it's okay. So Nina
they're your
Weinman and
gals.
Tracy Andreen together. Okay, between the three of us, I think it's 100 and something movies
Yeah.
for Hallmark.
Yeah.
We call each other we're our work wives. I just saw them in LA. Like I literally could not do this without them. And we talk every single day and we just can't live without each other. So we would love, I think, you know what? We would love to write the Hallmark musical, but I don't know if that's ever going to happen. I
Somebody
think that's what we
write
would
it.
like to do. Like Hallmark the musical on Broadway. That's what we would do together if we had, time, money, and
So many people have, said, do it, do it, do it. I know, like, I watch When Calls the Heart, and for years we have said there are so many people on that show, but in Hallmark in general, that can just sing and dance and do
oh
all of
yeah,
these other things.
I've had 10 Broadway actors in my movies, and none of them were singing movies, which kills me. I had like huge Broadway stars. I had
Yeah.
Victoria Clark in a movie, and she didn't sing. She was the queen. And I had, well, in One Royal Holiday, we had tons of huge Broadway stars because it was while Broadway was still shut down,
Yeah.
COVID, but we were shooting.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I had these huge, huge, huge stars, like 5 Broadway stars in one movie. And they sang for a second, like a Christmas Carol. And I just think
Yeah.
that I always thought Hallmark the musical would be a huge seller on Broadway if it was sort of a tongue-in-cheek,
Oh, yeah.
not mean, like not like Book of Mormon, but a little bit self-aware of
Yeah.
where it's poking a tiny bit of fun at itself, but not in any kind of negative way at all. I'm sure someone's right. I think someone's actually written sort of an off Broadway version of that already, but I don't know.
It just needs to happen. We just
I
keep
know,
needing to
right?
manifest
Yeah,
all of these things
we just
out
need
there.
a multi-million-dollar investor and a composer and permission.
Yeah.
Permission would be the bigger one.
That would be it,
Yeah,
right? And then the budget to do it. Like, how do
right.
we?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you would have to have there would have to be that would be very. I think it would cost a lot, and
Yeah.
so I'm not sure. Yeah.
Probably.
Anyway, someday
There you go.
I'll win
Okay.
the
Last
lottery and
one.
I'll
The
finance it.
best writing advice you were ever given.
Uh, yes. Well, this is the advice I give to people when they ask me how because I was given this advice and now I give it to other people, is if you're hired to do a movie or write a script and people are paying you money and they give you notes, you have to just do the notes. Just do the notes.
Yeah.
You can talk about the notes. You can explain why you might think that note doesn't work, but if they, you have a conversation, if they say, okay, but still do it, then you just got to do it. And
Yeah.
it's sometimes really, really hard because
Yeah.
sometimes you think, well, this is going to ruin the whole movie. But then, ultimately, you're doing a job. The other writing advice is everybody has an idea for a Hallmark movie, literally every single person I've ever met. That's not the
We
hard
all
part.
do.
That is not the hard part. The hard part is sitting down and staring at a blank screen and making yourself sit and write. That
Hmm.
is literally the hard part, is sitting down and
Hmm.
doing it. And anybody can write anything. If you just even did a page a day,
Yeah.
you would, in 6 months or whatever, you would be done.
Yeah.
So it's really not talking about it and actually doing it. That's the difference. That's 99% of people talk about, I'm going to write a novel, I'm going to write a screenplay, whatever. And then maybe 1% do it. And that's, if you want to do it, you got to do it. You got to find a way.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Even when you don't want to, right?
Yeah. No, nobody ever wants to. I mean, honestly, like that's the
Yeah.
Dorothy Parker line. I don't like writing, but I like having written. It's it's very hard. It's like childbirth. It's just painful sometimes to just
Hmm.
to get it all out of your head and onto the page. It's a struggle, and it feels like you ran a marathon when you're done.
Hmm.
But it's great. It's
At
great when
the
you're
end.
done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you can't tease a whole lot, but any other projects? Could we assume that you have a project that you're working on right now?
I have one right now that has to do with, I will just say, the wedding industry. That's
Okay.
all I can say.
Okay.
That's pretty general. I can't, that's giving away nothing.
No.
And then I'm just sort of um now I'm just kind of thinking about new ideas and going, talking, like I said, talking to actors and just
Hmm.
sort of, I have a second to, because I was so busy last year, I didn't really do much development because I
Yeah.
did 4 movies last year. So now I have a little time um to sort of give my brain a second to think of some new
Yeah.
stuff to
Yeah.
do. Yes, that's what
Yeah.
I'm doing right now.
That's awesome.
Maybe actually see my family and, exercise. I don't know.
There you go. Well, we are super excited to see Passport to Love kick off this weekend. Thrilled that 2 of these movies in June you have written. So let me just remind everybody that this Saturday night, 8/7 Central on Hallmark Channel, we've got To Barcelona with Love. And then next Saturday, we've got To Barcelona Forever, same time on Saturday night. And then both of these movies will air the next day on Hallmark Plus. It's been great talking to you. Thank you so
Yeah,
much,
thank you so
Julie.
much.
We're
Thank you.
excited to see these 2 movies, to see what you've got in the works. Always love following your work. Thanks for what you contribute for Hallmark. It provides us some great entertainment. It builds community for us. We're in threads. We're talking about these movies, so it's always just
It's
fun
the
to see
best.
how that
It is the
community
best
extends.
community of people. It's the
Yeah,
best people ever. I love meeting everybody, especially
yeah,
we just out on the cruise and the experience
yeah.
and all that stuff. It's been fantastic.
It's
Yeah.
so cool because, like you said, you talk to those girls every day, and on this side of it, we're doing the same thing from
Right.
people all over the country, even all over the world, that we're just, checking in on each other and seeing how life is. So,
Oh, that's awesome. I
anyway,
love,
well, all the best on the success of these 2 movies. I'm excited
yeah.
to see them, and then whatever else is to come. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much.
Okay, bye bye.